Good evening, everyone, and very warm welcome to the session, the masterclass series being CEO Ready, which is hosted by BAGGGEL Foundation. We are mission focused to develop women as CEOs, and we believe that is how we will balance the world. The masterclass title for today, it is actually going to be a 60-minute session vis-a-vis the 90-minute format that we use. We believe with Apurva Chamaria, a distinguished guest here, we can pack the entire world in this 60-minute capsule. And Apurva, thank you so much for joining us. We so look forward to the conversation on how do you get a strategic blueprint for, of course, startups and enterprises, just for all of our guests who obviously must have seen, followed, done everything possible on LinkedIn. I would have read everything. Talk about Apurva is the head of startups, venture capital, and private equity partnerships at none other than the Big Four, which is Google, and has worked in various leadership roles across corporate sector. And we are very, very happy to have you here, Apurva. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Supriya. Thank you so much for inviting me, and many congratulations on the fabulous work you and the team do at the BAGGGEL Foundation.
Thank you, Apurva. Well, we will get right into the hot seat. We have you here, and we will start our conversation with such a stellar career. Apurva, share with us your life journey and some of the highlights that kind of make up who you are today.
So I come from a very small town called Kathiar in Bihar, and many years ago, when the quality of schooling wasn't that great in Bihar, my parents sent me to a boarding school. So I studied at Mayo, and it's a great school, extracurricular. You get all round exposure. So spent my formative years there, and then basically came to Delhi for college, did my MBA. And you know how the Delhi circle is during college. You would do debates, choreography, drama. So we
Absolutely.
really got to know people across colleges. And being from Delhi, I'm sure you can identify with this.
Totally, St. Stephen's College, and I enjoyed my 3 years there and loved it. And Deb Sock, yes.
Absolutely. So I think that was the crowd, and it wasn't like we were just focused on really building a great career. That time, I think things were easier. World was less complicated. We were really busy having a good time, learning, doing debates, drama practice, earning
Yes.
pocket money by to Auto Expo, standing there, all the fun stuff. So that was life, and I was creative. So I started getting gigs to do voiceovers, ad copy, and before I knew it, I was working at the ad agency.
Outstanding.
Yeah. And doing, TV shows. And then, one of my branch heads for Rediffusion that time said, why don't you do a MBA? I think it'll teach you a lot about business. And you can always come back to advertising, although very few do once you do an MBA. And he was very prophetic. So I went on to do my MBA. It was an amazing experience. I interned at Ranbaxy, got a pre-placement offer, joined them, and for 3 years worked in their international business. So worked across Australia, Pacific Islands, Philippines, South Africa.
Awesome.
Very, very interesting, different world, selling and marketing and distributing pharmaceutical to chemist outlets and promoting it to doctors. And I was on a long flight to and I met somebody who used to be in tech. There were no direct flights from South Africa to India. Uh, we used to go to Dubai from Cape Town or Joburg and then over to Delhi. So on that long flight, it just seemed incredible what tech was doing to the world, to business models. And one thing led to the other. When I came back, I said, I want in on this industry. Didn't know anybody. So pretty much started cold calling.
Wow.
And yeah, so
So I'm impressed. Today, the cold calling would be probably sending a LinkedIn cold request to someone.
absolutely.
Yeah, interesting, Apurva.
But I think there's so much power in not knowing what can't be done. So that led to a couple of interviews, and I ended up joining HCL Tech uh, as a part of their core strategy and marketing team,
Hmm?
which was just getting formed. HCL used to be about a $700 million company, uh,
Wow.
and went on to spend 14 years there in various sales, marketing, and business development kind of roles. In 18, I was already, in a senior leadership position, was feeling very comfortable in my career, which was actually very worrying for me. I thought it was time to reset the clock, get into something which is very challenging,
Mhm.
creates higher learning opportunities for me. So joined a company called RateGain,
Mhm.
which was a SaaS, which is a SaaS data science company for travel and hospitality. And RateGain offers revenue management, distribution, and marketing services using its platforms. Had a great journey. The founder was incredible. We built a world class team, scaled it to about $100 million, um, and learned a lot. So, moving from a services org to a product org, running the business in almost 200 countries around the world. And all throughout my life, I've been, fascinated by entrepreneurs, working with them, partnering with them, which has always offered opportunities to either invest or support them, help them, coach them. That was going on. And after that, I did a short stint at Tech Mahindra, where I was responsible for corporate strategy and the cloud business. And I was also the chief of staff to the CEO. And it's almost going to be 3 years for me at Google.
Awesome.
Great company, incredible team. So that's the journey.
That is beautiful, Apurva. And it's amazing how simply you put the stellar experience that you've had. And I'm sure many things that you picked up along the way. If you were to look back, Apurva, to where you are today, extremely successful, what would you say were those early one or two signs that you could see that if you have this under your belt, you're likely going to have a great career?
I think for me, it was just about hunger. I was like, it's very hard to say that I'll be the most brilliant in any field. But what's in my hand is I can definitely be the most resilient and hardworking. That was completely in my hand. So
So
just
a bird in
trying
hand is better than two in the bush. And what you have, love it, care for it, and do the best that you have, right?
absolutely show up.
Show up. Outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding. It's interesting in Bagel, we have this index we call Show Up Index.
Oh, wow.
So much conversation we do about women not showing up. And obviously, I think it's a human thing of not showing up, but women and networking perhaps not showing up. We do a very simple thing of recording all the events that we have and asking our members to say who's present, not. It's not attendance, it's simply say, show up. We all have complex lives, but how much do you show up? And, sometimes magic happens just by that. So brilliant. That is one, which is hard work and showing up, Apurva. That's my personal favorite. What else? Is there anything else you would say?
I would say just, uh, always being there for people around. And most people have a smaller circle. So they're around for people who are their family or immediate close friends, but generally be around for everyone. Like actually have a world view versus a family view. So always be there to help, listen. At times, listening itself is a great help.
Wow. Thank you so much. That is brilliant. What a message when we're all moving towards an individualist society, towards looking after I, me, myself. Here is Apurva who's telling us be there for everyone. The globe is your family and don't just look at your own. Apurva, I love that. And I want to take a moment and publicly on this platform, thank you for being there for me. It was beautiful. It's a very new relationship, but I totally love. And I believe that when I chat with you or I send a text or I meet you in Delhi, it's almost like you're there. You're living it in total flesh and soul.
It's incredible knowing you, Supriya, and I'm so glad we met and we became friends.
Thank you, Apurva. I'm so happy to have you here. Apurva, talking about this love for startups that you have, and you did say that it was across the journey that you've been fascinated. You even joined a startup, and now you're heading it. And we also know you run. I mean, your knowledge about startups is just fascinating as to how you. What do you see as the trends coming up? What can you share with us to say in terms of a strategic outlook towards India? We're the third largest ecosystem. Where are we going with this? And what's your bet?
See, India is going to move from a sub $2,000 per capita income economy to $5,000 per capita income in the next couple of years. And you could argue about which year it's going to happen, but is it happening? Is it happening soon? I don't think there's any argument about it. So I'm absolutely long and very bullish on India. India's startup scene is exploding with innovation. And it's amazing to see the energy, creativity, and drive in the ecosystem. What's exciting is you have many second time entrepreneurs coming in and many entrepreneurs who are giving great exits to investors, employees, core talent team, which is leading to a very virtuous cycle of innovation and business creation starting to form. The more people see success and failure is normalized and dreams are normalized, uh, it's okay to dream big. It's okay to fail. You are going to see more and more entrepreneurs come up. And earlier, all Indian enterprises or startups were largely about copying Western models and duplicating it in India. But today, the new wave of Indian entrepreneur could be from tier two, smaller towns, non IIT IM backgrounds, thinking very big, thinking from India for the world, building in very complex fields like biotech, space tech, defense tech, AI, climate tech, sustainability, and many of these companies are becoming world beaters. So
True.
in today in India, whether it's product management, UX, AI, talent for most of these things which wasn't there 20 years ago is available.
Amazing. If you were to place a bet on, let's say, top three sectors, Apurva, would you be comfortable taking a bet on some of these?
Yeah, I would say top three sectors are going to be tech related.
Mhm.
So fintech is definitely going to be a very large sector and is going to continue being SaaS backslash Gen AI, developer tool SaaS, vertical SaaS, horizontal SaaS. So Indian tech for the globe would be the second.
Got
I
it.
think very, very bullish on it. I think digital public infrastructure based solutions. So solutions which are built for population scale
Got it.
on public protocols is going to be the third area, which a lot of people currently don't talk about, but it's going to be very, very big and a huge gift and legacy which India will offer the world.
Awesome, awesome. And we've seen success of some great firms that have ridden on the back of this infrastructure that was created, right?
Absolutely.
We've seen that. We are seeing ONDC being the talk
Absolutely.
to say that what can we do with this magically new. Brilliant, Apurva. That is fascinating. And Wiser, one of the other hat I wear is Wiser, and where we are looking at enterprise AI focus. So that's what you're looking at. So that continues to be. There's some noise coming in the background. Apurva, can you hear it? No, you can't.
I can, but it's not at this end.
It goes down at some point. Yeah. My apologies for this. Okay. But it's very audible.
It does say actual recording is higher quality.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are good. I think we are good. Now, Apurva, when we talk about, now we start with India being very bullish. And yet, when we see the difference, and this is all in my conversations with US investors, and you absolutely at the heart of this entire conversation, there is still a lot of catch up to do. We still talk about domestic money, which is 10 India and, number. As much as we are unlocking this, that path seems to be either slow or what's your view? Where are we when we compare ourselves on the international scene? Take us to not match up, but to be of significance. I was also reading there is barely 3% of the world's capital totally invested that comes to India in the startups.
That's a very good question. I think Silicon Valley has decades of tech culture, access to risk capital, and a mature ecosystem which has been built over more than 50 years on mentorship, collaboration, and scale. What's different for us in India is that we have the advantage of solving for scale and diversity like nobody is seen in the world.
Sure.
For example, in India, dialects change every 8, 9 kilometers. Every state in India or most states in India could be as large as a country in Europe.
Okay.
The scale complexity at which Indian founders are solving is phenomenal. Our startups are focusing on large underserved markets and tailor-made innovations which could be globally relevant.
True.
To bridge the gap, we of course need more cross-border collaborations, access to global mentors, and I'm repeating it, creating a culture where people are not afraid of failure.
Very true.
Like in US, having a failure resume is very common. And
Yeah.
people highlight the projects or startups or companies or work they've done where they haven't succeeded and what are their learnings. I've yet to see a single resume in India which does that. None of the podcasts focus on failure.
Hi. You're right. You're right. So if this was to switch, Apurva, you hosting me, I'm happy to talk about my failure, but with your stellar background, we can't. But Apurva, thanks for saying that. I always felt that when women books I read on diversity and great leaders, I always felt it was either I was lucky or I was blessed. And I have a personal repulsion to these. There is God. We're all blessed. We're privileged. But I would always want to know, peel the onion a bit and say, what led you to your success? There were challenges. Like I have been very honest about saying, well, they were nice when I was in a country head role and a CEO role, and I went to sleep with tears because I was like, I almost thought that it is becoming too complex to lead. So there are those moments I think we all need to be comfortable sharing. So you're talking to a failed founder at once. 2007, I got my startup funded. I was very happy those days getting post million, 5 million valuation. And I was very happy. It was a US investor. And I was like, wow, PPT पे भी होता है ये सब. So on a base of PPT, 5 mil post valuation. And I'm like, wow, yeah. But 2.5 years, it didn't make sense. And I thought that I will leave. My other founders continued. And I was like, failed founder. But the corporate was very warm and nice even 2009, 9.5 when I joined Alcatel and I had other offers. So I think you're right. If we have more of these stories where we can discuss, and today is my, I think fourth venture now, one was that, second was foundation, third is an accelerator run now in a fund. So I think, yeah, failure teaches you a lot more. What do you say?
Completely agree. And I think people should feel really comfortable. They should feel psychological safety, discussing
Amazing.
failures, sharing learnings. And I think sharing failures will help far more people than sharing winnings. And
We're going to take a tip on that one and do a session in our foundation on sharing failures. And I think, but you just made me very comfortable, Apurva. Thank you so much. With legends like you, I think we will set up that culture faster than Apurva, switching gears, we were talking about women now. We've always had a conversation why women in startups are less, especially in deep tech, it's even less. I would love to see more in AI. I still see AI very different and heavily densely populated with men. What is, in your view, could be the solution? I wouldn't ask you to get into the problem. I think most of us know where we are. But how can we encourage more women to join deep tech, technology wave startups, where technology is core?
we did a research last year with Thai Delhi NCR, and
Hmm.
we put out a report on women in the startup ecosystem, which covered both operators slash founders and investors.
Awesome.
And the biggest founding was we need to solve for top of the funnel. Once women enter the startup scene or as a VC or as an investor, at every next stage, the success metrics of going from say seed to series A to series B is almost similar to that of male founders.
Outstanding.
So data in India at least doesn't show any remarkable difference in outcomes. It's just the number of women who are becoming founders, although it's improving, but the base is very small.
Place is very
So, and a lot of women, exit the ecosystem because either family responsibilities or lack of support in the startup ecosystem or otherwise. So I think we really, really need to create the enabling environment, not only men, even women coming up for women and supporting them like you're doing with Baggett Foundation. I think if we can do more and more of it, for example, we today announced their startup awards, annual startup awards. The winner in the most innovative startup category is a company called Brainside.ai. Founders are both women, Dr. Rinjin and, her co-founder, which is
outstanding.
incredible. So, and it's a deep tech startup. It's like Google Maps for the brain.
Outstanding.
So you actually have now some incredible women founders building very deep in space and drone and generative AI.
Awesome. Awesome. Oh, you're right. We need an enabling ecosystem. And I think one of my personal drive about foundation starting this was one. Second, entering a VC space at this stage of life was just that. If you have experience and if you can do this, why not? We can all take our foot off the accelerator and say, I am done. My career is over and now I can take a break. But I think some of us who have, probably need to come forward and with, leaders like you in the system, creating such a warm ecosystem for everyone else, we can only hope for the best to come. Switching to now strategy, Apurva, such a big, strong word associated with more men than women, which is fine. I think, this person is strategic, but we will not talk gender. We in this conversation, we only focus on distilled insights of wisdom and expertise. When you look at in an enterprise, what are two, three things which, from a business strategy, the leaders could focus on? And then we'll switch to startups to say what could founders focus on and where does the difference lie?
Very, very good question. I think, are you talking about like growth stage businesses, early stage?
So let's talk about growing it. Let's talk about growth because strategy obviously, becomes that much more. Earlier, it's more idea and scale. And in the enterprise, it's all about growth, Apurva. I don't want to touch sustainability now. It gets into different dimensions, but let's talk about growth.
Great. So I think very, very core part of your strategy is how obsessed are you with your customers? I often hear about competitor obsession and some founders and even CEOs glossing over what competitors are doing. But I think this one of the biggest core sources of competitive advantage, consumer insight, customer insight is how obsessed are you on your customers. And if you can truly understand, listen to customers, listen to power users, listen to anti customers, non consumers, and figure out how do you take decisions keeping customers at the very center. That's a core strategy which you should apply. Financial discipline is very important. I think often when a company is growing very fast, you end up really getting carried away with growth at all costs. So focus on maintaining financial health, managing cash flows, being capital efficient is very important. And for any growth leader and all the amazing women founders on the call, I think the single most important thing we do is companies and startups are like buildings, which means to really grow high, you need a deep foundation. How do you build a deep cultural foundation, which is honest, which is introspective, which is respectful for all the constituents involved in a business? And you use that deep cultural foundation to attract the right kind of people in. We've heard, uh, and there are lots of case studies in the startup and enterprise ecosystem where company cultures have gone wrong and which has had a cascading effect for everybody, shareholders, employees, families. So most people think that culture is only important for either startups or only big companies. It's important for everybody. And it should not be cosmetic that it's just on fancy PowerPoint presentations or, posters. Um, Many companies also have, cultural tenets, which are very long, very hard to remember. But if you can actually distill it down to a few lines, which serve as the North Star of the company and the people who work there, that can be a very powerful strategy.
Apurva, you continue to amaze me with how wonderful you shine with your simplicity and values. My God, just it resonates through.
Kind of you to say that.
It's just amazing. Trust me, there's so many leaders in my 28 years I have met, and there are very few who tend to grow on you and stay with you. And it's just so warm that so much conversation and culture, and nobody's explained that it's actually the root on which you kind of, ever think that you'll grow a large tree, which again, storm is going to weather. The weaker roots are going to get,
Absolutely.
those trees, yeah, they're going to get uprooted and those trees won't sustain. So brilliant, beautiful. Awesome. When you look at when you've evaluated so many startups, so many. I don't think I would even ask you to take a number at it. What differentiates? How do you know this person knows strategy and this person doesn't? What are the elements like intuitively you know?
So I think at the very core, strategy is about making choices. So a warning bell is if you're talking to a founder, an entrepreneur, a builder, and they're trying to do everything. Core definition of strategy is taking thoughtful, calibrated, risk weighted choices. Strategy is always about either this or that. If somebody is playing across segments, if somebody is playing across price points, across categories, and trying to use multiple levers to differentiate, you clearly know that they haven't found PMF.
Outstanding.
And there is nothing wrong with that. Maybe they will find it subsequently. But that time, clearly, they're not strategic. So I urge everybody when they think of strategy is to just think about choices. Do you understand what are the strategic options, which means choices? Can you find a NPV of the choices and do a risk weighted average against each choice, along with the resources you can allocate? And then finally, pick up one, two, three. So if you have five choices, either or, pick up one, two, three, four, pick up one on every vector. So I think it's very important for entrepreneurs who are pitching, who are building their businesses to clearly also articulate what will they not do. And if you pivot and the market circumstances change and your choices change, that can be it. But doing everything clearly shows that you don't have a clear understanding of the market, consumer segments, go to market, and how will you actually build it into a large outcome.
Beautiful. Strategies for making choices. I love that. It's going to stay with me forever. Forever. Brilliant. So, for all of you joining in, listening in, I think this one is a session where you continue to take notes. There's a video recording. You can always come back. But this one is a complete framework led conversation where every answer has a framework. And what a lovely way to distill it. Talking about brand building, Apurva, what has helped you build your brand?
I think, and I was sharing this with someone whom I'm mentoring. And if you think of a brand, it all starts with a core product. So the first thing is really being good at what you do, being deep, being very thoughtful. That's the inner circle of the brand, which I call the product. The peripheral circle, the first peripheral circle around it is if you're really good at what you do, can you help others? Can you enable others? Can you lift others with you? And once you have done both, the last layer is the distribution of the brand promise.
Wow.
Most people end up doing the distribution first. So a lot of work on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and many other things, YouTube, without really focusing on the inner core and the
Oh,
first periphery.
amazing. Amazing.
So without really having a core promise, like are you someone who is very good at finance, ops, general management, culture building, then sharing that expertise and lifting others around you freely and Hindi में हम बोलते हैं Swarth bhav se. Share it without any expectation, help. Once you have done that, that also results in a lot of learning and polishing of your own skills. Then you are ready to distribute and create a personal brand. A
Wow.
lot of people actually start from outside.
Oh, they do. ज्ञान की बारिश होती है। आप अंदर से देखो, आप सोचते हो, walk the talk कहाँ है? Where is walk the talk? You are saying so much, but in my personal experience with you, it did not show up that way. So you're right. What a lovely way. Like I said, it's a framework conversation. Totally love it. Apurva, was there any challenging time when you, like, there is such a noble soul you come across with a huge layering of strategic elements? You're strategic almost about, it's almost like your every minute you'll be clear. It's a choice where to spend and how not to. And I think you'll have very clear clarity on what not to do. But were there times when this entire who Apurva is got tested, challenged? And how did you come out of that?
I think it does happen at times, and you just have to center yourself. So centering is a very important part of. So true north is always different from what the compass shows as north. True north is a little on the right side of actual compass shows it as north, but true north is. So I think once you know your true north, you can always use that as a compass to center yourself on what are your priorities, what is your reason for doing something or not doing something.
Give us an example, Apurva, for someone to say, hone in. Give us an example to say how, whatever you can share, that you've been able to do that. And that's how it's like we can all live and learn from you.
I think there can be many examples. I think, for example, during COVID, as a commercial leader, you have a choice to go after customers who are not paying you, or you have a choice to understand how deep of a trouble they are in and partner with them and help them in turning their business around so that they can eventually start paying you. It also depends on, are your relationships transactional? Do you want to build a lasting company? So there are many such examples in one's career, which as a senior leader, you're almost tested to call upon your true north every week.
Very well said. And very well said. Do you have some strategy to align your compass north? Do you have a strategy? Is there a like one, two, three, Apurva? I'm going to call you Apurva, the framework strategist. Is there a framework around this? How you say step one, step two, step three?
Not really. I think you have to think deeply and think about who you are, what would you like out of life, what's your priority. And when you take a decision, what are the reasons why you're taking the decision? And at times, the decisions could go wrong. And when it goes wrong, you have to just go back to the assumptions and say, why did you do that? And if the assumptions were wrong, it's a learning. If the assumptions were right, it's great. And you have to just suck it up and move on. So
Agree?
you can't
Agree.
wallow in.
You can't. You can't. Dust yourself.
Yeah, move on.
गिरते हैं वही जो घुड़सवार रहे जो घोड़े पे. So it's like, you fall, but you dust yourself and get up, and
Show
gallop.
up and move on.
Show up and move on. Brilliant. We got mantras. When you look at strategic, strategy sometimes doesn't play out. You have it in your mind, you made choices and they don't. And what you've left on the table sometimes comes to bite you to say, oh my God, why did I not do that? But in a startup world, it comes at cost. It comes at early credibility. It comes at a demotivation personally because, there's not a very large ecosystem that you're a part of. Um, how have you seen startups come out of it effectively, which is leadership during crisis?
So there are many examples. I can give you an example of a
Sure.
company called Stage, which used to be called Witty Feed earlier. I was an early investor. At one time, they were doing 50, 60 crores, hugely profitable, the second largest viral content site in the world. And then a large internet giant published a large, put them under a lawsuit, and they buckled and went down under.
Okay.
The founders had a very tough time, mental breakdown. They had to sell their house. Very, very tough time. They connected with people. They started looking at what's happening in the world. They wound that company down. They started a new company called Stage, which is like a Netflix, but for Bharat in different languages. And recently, Bloom invested in them. They're doing very well. Startup founders inherently are people who are optimistic about a better future. And while they oscillate like this between their daily emotions and successes and failures, but they're basically gritty people. The
Right.
most great founders are, they're optimistic. Even if they have like 2 weeks of runway, they feel that we're just one good call away the company around.
I love that, Apurva, how you said it. I'm so learning that because I have had a startup career in between. I've had a long corporate career, and now I'm back to startup last 3 years. And only you can pull yourself up. The days go like that. So there are days when my dad will ask me, "How was the day or how was the week?" I'm like, "Good." And there are days, "Good." Papa said, "Why don't you share?" I'm like, "Kya kare? What do you share?" Because the curve is a huge.
You can start the morning thinking you're on top of the mountain, and
Yeah.
1 hour later, you're like, oh my God, should I shut it? Am I in the wrong business?
It just appeals to my heart very closely, and very close. It's a fundraise. You're like, "Oh, this one isn't done." And then suddenly you realize your texts are not responded. I'm like,
What happened? In that meeting, I thought we'll walk out with a check.
what happened? So there is many a slip between the lip and the check is what we feel now.
I remember that conversation.
It's a very interesting thing, and you're right. You need grit. You need grit in that faith. Thanks for saying that. You said it beautifully. I love the strategic element about choice. I love the strategic element about knowing what your core is and how do you extend that out. I love the fact that when you look at this competitive strategy, how do you position versus the others, your entire differentiation? How do you see that, Apurva? Yeah. How do you see that happen?
I think one of the very important learnings for me in life is when you're building a company or a startup, timing is everything. Being too early could mean educating the market from scratch, while being too late means losing the first mover advantage. The key is to stay very close to market trends, consumer behavior, and emerging technologies, while also being very nimble enough to pivot if necessary. So, very good strategy is to test your product, service, innovation, idea in a smaller market or niche first. This helps you validate your idea without the risk of a full fledged launch. And then you keep innovating, iterating. It's important to ship. So I think perfection in the startup world is really, really overrated. So as good founders, as you think about competitive pressures, it's like a chess with multiple players. So everybody's making moves all the time. Difference being, it's not like you make one move and then your competitor makes one move. So the board changes every second. Everybody's making multiple moves fast.
Wow.
So you have to really, really stay close to consumers, innovate very fast, not worry about actually cannibalizing your own business. Uh, there have been great companies which have innovated, sat on the products for years. Somebody else has come along, licensed that, launched it, and actually done a great job of building the market.
Wow, awesome. If you had to look at founder criteria, these are two, three things you look in a founder and you know that over a period of time, you've seen that framework work for you.
When you're thinking about great founders, right?
Yeah, great founders, yes.
It's a very good question. I
We
think
are bonding. I like when you compliment me. I really like it. We are bonding. I'm happy you like the questions.
I think when you think about great founders, I would say they're very, very keen observers and deep listeners. You cannot build a company, a very large outcome, if you're not observing, if you're not a deep listener, and you can't connect disparate dots. Everybody can see the stars, very few people can see constellations. So, founders are people who can connect disparate dots and see constellations and see where the market is going. That comes from a lifelong mental model, the way they have trained themselves to listen, observe, hear, observe. It's a very, very deeply iterative process. That's the first quality. If you are deeply observant, keen listener, it will help in customer obsession. It will help in understanding team very well, understanding what's happening with regulators. So that's the first quality. Second is very, very large thinking. Most founders will typically think far beyond any reasonable sets of imagination. By and large, they are not reasonable people because reasonable people will make reasonable efforts towards reasonable outcomes.
Wow.
If you want an unreasonably large outcome as a founder, the founder has to be unreasonable. And the
Awesome.
third thing is ability to oscillate between strategy and very deep execution. So you cannot only be strategic, you also have to run the revenue cadence, operations, customer relations, employee relations. They can easily go from a helicopter mode to digging deep in the trenches and very comfortably switch context very fast between high level strategy and deep execution. Very few founders are only good at one thing, which is either strategy or execution.
Absolutely. Very well said, Apurva. That is a trait I have personally been fascinated by in people when I look at it. Ability to not be able to think above and beyond is always worried. think big. We used to have these values. Execute seamlessly. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like an effortless. It's like you watch a movie and you do know the years and efforts and the retakes and the iterations. When you're out there and you see it's like cutting, butter with knife. I think that has been my personal favorite. And I love the fact how you said it.
So we always say execute like there's no tomorrow and
Yes.
strategize like there's one.
Wow. Well, that's the first time I heard it as a combination. Lovely. There are such nuggets that are coming out. I think the team is going to have a lot of great time in, it'll be difficult to write this blog, but this will run in pages, Apurva. It'll run in pages. I'm telling you.
I
I'm a
hope
bigger
not.
fan of you. No, I'm a much bigger fan of you after this. I'm so glad we decided to do this. A couple of more topics we're going to touch. We are covering the journey of startups. We're looking at strategy. We're looking at leadership during crisis. We're looking at the elements what make a great founder. Now coming to, there are these great universities, alumni that you have network access to. There are business hubs in districts like a Bangalore, that you have an access to. And yet, if you look at the intersectionality of some of these, imagine a tier two founder, a woman, a first time entrepreneur in a family. So when you look at some of these play out, what can we do for those talents to emerge? I remember I ran something like Data Innovation Bazaar in my Western Digital stint. We partnered with Startup India, Meiti, and DST. And we were surprised that our top 50, the ones we gave early, over the 3 years, accelerator access and few grants, they were 60% was tier two, tier three towns. We were. Absolutely. And the institute obviously percentage obviously follows that logical trend. But today I obviously see that, we are willing to look above and beyond these metro obsession. But what is your take on this?
Yeah, I think great founders are almost like water, right? So they might not have the best opportunities. They might be from a small town, village. They might not have the most pedigreed education. They might not have had the best opportunities. They recognize the world is not fair. They recognize they are not going to be given things on a platter. And they anyways make it work. You've had some incredible founders in India. There's a very large fintech founder who, when he first came to Delhi, didn't even speak English, taught himself using a Rapidex, and today runs a very large fintech company, listed fintech company.
Awesome.
I think there, if you really, really want to be outstanding in everything, you will find a way. Of course, all of us have to do our bit to create a more equitable ecosystem, to create opportunities for everybody who doesn't have access to that. AI is going to play a huge role in doing that. But that said, whether it's access to talent, knowledge, network, good founders find a way around everything.
Awesome.
They're out there networking, connecting with people, knowing people, pumping hands, doing coffee catch ups, always learning, big networks. I see you do that very well, Chitra. In fact,
Trying hard, trying hard. I love that, Apurva. I think one, I'm fascinated by what the world can teach us. I think sometimes wisdom is about knowing what you know and what you don't know, and the ability, humility to go and learn. I love our conversations with you. In 1 hour, you teach me more than I could read in a book for a year or 2 years. So I love that conversation.
very kind of you. The feeling is mutual. I think really enjoy meeting you and also learning from you.
Thanks, Apurva. You're way ahead in this, so you're going to be my mentor on this, which you already know. The biggest thing also that founders have a bottleneck. My gosh, so much we talk about it. And we have this excellent years of 2021, and then we say two, and then we say fundraising winter. And there's so much literature out there. What can you share which is not written? And that is again Apurva's framework on fundraising.
I think there's a very simple concept. I'm assuming everything else is fine. Your business is fine. Your strategy is fine. Your team is fine. ABC. The
Yeah.
framework is ABC. ABC basically stands for always be connecting. You cannot only raise when you need the money. It's too late. If you start raising when you need the money, you're already too late in the game. So you always have to be connecting, thinking about the next round, the best investors who could support you in your journey, and always be raising, always be connecting.
Awesome. Awesome. I thought the ANC will be Apurva Chamaria. Connect with Apurva Chamaria. The B will be bold in connecting with him. I totally love this. Totally love this. Apurva, what have you seen as success criteria? Those who are able to raise, of course, one is always be connecting, which is brilliant because when you're too close to the finish line in terms of, you're running out of budget, you have these pressures of not being able to pay salaries, you have 30, 60 days that you're counting. So it's possible, I'm now linking it back, that sometimes it's the founder. He or she has to do everything. And therefore, they perhaps don't dedicate that much time to fundraising. Sometimes I see lack of investment on, sales side. sometimes lack on investment on tech if you're a sales heavy person. So, what is your advice on balancing the team?
I think when you are starting a company, it would be a luxury to have all functions and the best of everyone. So when you are starting, you are actually looking at generalists, people who can do multiple functions, people who are go-getters, who will find a way to learn and do it. As you start becoming larger, you go from a generalist Swiss knife kind of an organization to a more detailed screwdriver wrench kind of an organization where people are deep functional experts. Once you start hitting maturity and you want to disrupt yourself, good idea is to then again do breakout teams with more generalists, entrepreneurs, EIRs, who are going to create new micro businesses and scale. So most early stage founders don't have the luxury of having deep functional experts in all functions. So they would typically have a product manager who also does UA, maybe also doubles up as a project manager, program manager. They would have a CEO who also doubles up as CFO.
True, true, true. No, you're right. You just know the life of a founder so beautifully and your experience. What is next challenge that waits for you, Apurva, in the Google landscape?
Great. I think AI is a huge opportunity for Google. We're very, very excited about how do we bring the best of AI knowledge, skills, competencies, technology to founders around the world. How do we make AI more accessible so that it's not deeply concentrated in the hands of few? And the way we frame a strategy for us is being bold and yet responsible. So
Very
it's
true.
very important to think about ethics in AI. How do you train data? How do you remove biases? How do you safeguard data which is used to train models? And at the same time, how do you make the power of AI accessible to everybody? Whether it's from a cost aspect, or it's a language and dialect aspect, or accessible to training, skills, competencies. All these are things we deeply think about and work on. So, very, very exciting times ahead. We're working with amazing founders across India, across the globe to make the power of AI more accessible to them, partnering very deeply with Meaty Startup Hub, with multiple government departments, accelerators, incubators, state government, institutions like IIT to really, really create a very deep and thriving AI ecosystem in India and beyond.
Wow. And Apurva, what is said about AI is that on many a such industrial revolution, this is called as the fourth industrial revolution. That's what my partner fondly calls it. And of course, the world calls it. We are talking about to say that we played a catch up in many of these, but in AI as India power, we are almost neck to neck. What would you say to this comment? Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think it's still ground zero. I don't think we are behind. I think India is going to be one of the most important countries to shape the future of AI in a very responsible, ethical, considerate, and humanized way. The culture which we have in the country, the way founders are thinking about it, is actually to solve for Indians at a massive scale.
Awesome.
So I think India is going to have a very, very important mark on the footprint of AI globally.
Awesome. Awesome. And obviously, I'm happy to hear that you shared few examples that women will play a role in this too. Considering that when we look at it, that it is data driven, it's algorithm driven, and therefore it's not that heavy machinery we're talking about. It's a sphere where, by the nature of it, it can be a level player, a good ground for women to do a catch up and I think come up with great ideas and either lead the world in terms of enterprise or be founders, right? We can call this as a level playing field too, right, Apurva?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Excellent. If there are any questions, we are happy to take now. We will be wrapping up in 6 to 7 minutes. Please feel free to put it in the chat. While there are lots of questions that Apurva and I have, and we'll continue to chat. So thank you so much for listening in and continue to listen in. Apurva, when we talk about enterprises, a little bit of that. This is a fascinating conversation on startups. We almost peeled everything in your presence as to what works. Okay, before we switch to enterprise, when you have seen startups fail, is there any unifying thread on which they fail?
I would say there are a bunch of unifying themes. Very important reason why many startups fail is working capital management. They run out of cash. If they had managed it better, success was just around the corner. And most people don't understand the difference between cash flow versus revenue.
Oh boy.
So they're booking revenue, but there's no cash in the bank. They're not collecting, which eventually leads to the startup failing. So I think that's a very common trend which we see. Second is, I would say, not really deeply thinking about what are they building. So building a Me Too product, not having a unique point of view on the space. And it's always far, far more expensive to build a undifferentiated, commoditized play. It will lead to higher cost of employee acquisition, customer acquisition, higher churn. Fundamentally, lack of differentiation is a death knell for many startups. So
Wow.
people fall in love with the idea of having a startup. Uh, they don't really have originality in their thinking. Eventually, leads to many startups dying. Those are two of the common things. Yeah.
Very well said. How do you differentiate and lovely. We got questions pouring in. So is it okay if we take 5, 7 minutes more if in case we get
Sure,
more? That's
we
it.
can do five. Yeah.
Yeah, 5. We will not go more there.
Sure.
I'll quickly run through the first question. This is from our member Vibhuti. She's saying, how do startups need to think differently between 3 stages she's marked 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and 10 to 100? What needs to change in the thinking?
I think across multiple layers, there are many changes which happen between 0 to 1, 1 to 10, and 10 to 100. 0 to 1 is all about the founder vision, founder led sales, finding that initial set of 5, 10 customers who are raving fanatics and loyalists. It's okay if 100 customers don't see merit in what you do. Initial 5 customers, 10 customers, 100,000, 1 lakh customers, if you're a consumer brand, who are loyalists, who are doing repeat buying, who are sharing feedback. Like in enterprise, we always say that your first customer influences the company culture.
Is it
So if you signed a customer, say like GE earlier, you would end up being a very data driven culture
true?
in your enterprise. If you ended up signing, say, Walmart as a customer, you would end up building a very frugal culture. So your first customer often, or first set of customers also influence what kind of a company do you turn out to be. So that's the 0 to 1 journey. 1 to 10 is actually about creating teams, hiring people who are better than you, allowing them space to run, and go from being a player to a player coach. 10 to 100 is about going from a player coach to actually being a manager. Like in football teams, you have managers.
True.
So you go from being a player coach to actually a manager coach,
Brilliant.
where you're thinking about building a sustainable organization, the impact, the footprint which you're leaving in the world. How do you create a more sustainable, long lasting company? De risking the strategy, supporting the player and the coach who are leading the team.
Awesome. It's like, bachpan mein we used to say, from somebody's, here, the Saraswati flows. I'm seeing it now happen right in front of me. Question, press button, ATM, boom, the answer comes. And this comes with Saraswati. Oh my God, you're like a,
Very kind of
ocean of wisdom.
very kind of you to say that, Chipriya.
Yeah, with this kind of core product, one can only be kind, Apurva. This is all you. Apurva, there's a question from Anand. What's your view on data centers? How much can they contribute to India's growth story?
Absolutely. I think India has a very, very powerful data center policy going for it. You have both global companies and Indian companies setting up DCs. And as AI becomes more pervasive, the quality and quantity of storage and compute and inferencing infrastructure is the need is only going to expand. So hugely bullish on the space. There are pundits talking about India becoming the data center capital of the world. I don't know about that, but I definitely think there's a massive opportunity for Indian entrepreneurs to play.
When you look at a foundation like ours, like a Bagel Foundation, where we are looking at saying women to balance the top and to be aspirational in being CEO ready, we feel like we've reached a CXO level, we are good. And ho gaya. What can be your advice to them? We got one more question coming. And then what can be your advice, your suggestion to women in terms of ambition? And could be both for startup and enterprises.
I think at times we are guilty of thinking ambition is only about becoming a CEO,
Totally. Charged guilty.
right? Ambition could also be being about a better person, better mom, better wife, better partner, better social worker. Largely, we have been brought up to think that ambition is very unidirectional. It's only about being a CEO. You could be a founder, you could be an
Yeah.
artist, you could be a chef, you could be a coach who's not the CEO but coaching CEOs. So I would strongly urge all the listeners, founders, women leaders who are on the call to not have a unidirectional ambition
Beautiful.
and really discover what is your true north. Your ambition could be anything. It could be to be the fittest you are at 50. It could be to pivot your career and go from being a corporate CXO to an artist. Don't let anybody define what your ambition should be.
Lovely.
It could be to have a very well balanced life.
I'm going to call you now. How many names should I give you? The ever flowing wisdom, the coach, the full human being. It's like Raymond used to love this ad, the complete man. It's a Raymond man. Apurva, with that, what titles you're getting from me?
I
Here
am
is
really
one more.
embarrassed. You can see me blushing and
Where is the man who's pink on the camera? There is a lovely question from Usha, and I'm so happy this question is asked because I've asked you so many questions as Apurva with your distilled experience, amazing. But there is as an investor, she's like, I just want to know, as an investor, what lessons would you want to share, with other entrepreneurs and the industry players based in what you're seeing today? What's the investor lens in you telling you?
I think as investors, often there are a lot of learnings which you get from market cycles. For example, if you look at public markets, till about 2, 3 years ago, the markets were almost silent and flat for almost 10 years. There have been many times where the markets have fallen sharply, corrected by 30, 40%. I think if the first thing is it's almost like the Rudyard Kipling poem. If you can hold your head high and
Right.
deal with failure and success as two imposters.
Beautiful.
So investing is not only technical skills, it's also a very, very level-headed mind, soul, and body. You need to really, really be resilient. And after a bad day in the markets, go back and think it's just a day or just a week or just a month. Cycles will come and go. Mool mantra is to stay true to first principle thinking, invest in great founders, great companies for the long term, and not really worry about or lose sleep over fluctuations and market cycles.
Absolutely. And while you're talking about sleep, someone is actually rereading your mind. And this is our closure question. With that, we will have used the extra 5 minutes that Apurva has so graciously given us. Do you have a daily practice? Because you come across extremely aware and in touch with who your core is. Do you have a daily practice to reflect and build this awareness?
Yeah, I think everybody, I shouldn't say everybody,
And this is
some of
from
us actually do meditate.
yeah.
My way is I used to cycle long distance. And after the first 30, 40, 50 kilometers on the road, uh, you become one with the road and you hit a very meditative Zen state of mind where you can empty your mind and really, really connect. Workout does that for me. When you're lifting weights, when you're going after that one extra rep, walking does that for me. Great EDM music, trance music does that for me. So I think you can really connect, go deep. For some people, it might be cooking. For a friend of mine, it's doing laundry, running the washing machine.
Actually, cooking works for me. It's amazing. I find that process of creation. I'm not a person who obviously enters the kitchen daily with my work schedule, but however, when I know I need to create, I need to zen and lose myself, it's amazing how cooking is the most meditative experience for me. And it's amazing that you say it. You're right. Apurva, that's so beautiful. You shared so many of these, how they work, and they may be different for different people. But thanks for showing us a little bit of a sneak preview into your world. With that, we are at the top of the hour and the stretch too. Apurva, really thanks from the heart. This has been a wonderful conversation. As much as we were discussing business strategy across startups, and we touched that more than enterprise, but getting to know you more and the human behind this big, giant, great positioning, and an outstanding soul that we came to know. I think, Apurva, thank you so much. We have your frameworks, we have your insights, and this conversation, I'm sure the viewers have enjoyed. Any final words from you? But from our side, only gratitude, Apurva. Thank you so much for being a great guest.
Thank you for having me over, Supriya. And I would just ask all the listeners be yourself, be bold, be responsible, and just go ahead and be the best you can be.
Outstanding. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. Let's work with this mission. Be the best that you can be in your own space without any comparison or anything else on your mind. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I totally loved hosting. Thank you, Apurva. Thank you, everyone.